You won't believe what went down in this courtroom. A man, likely Matthew Neil Aldrich, completely refuses to give his name and boldly claims he's an attorney in fact. Basically, he's saying he can represent himself legally without being a real lawyer. Yeah, it sounds wild, but it gets even crazier. Judge Simpson steps in, cool as ever, and lays it down straight. Only a licensed attorney can represent someone in a criminal case. He asks the man for proof. Some kind of valid power of attorney, and guess what? The man fails miserably. But wait, it gets even more intense. The judge calls out what's happening as a classic sovereign citizen stunt. All those confusing filings and legal mumbo-jumbo. Doesn't matter. The court's power comes from the U.S. and Tennessee constitutions, not from anyone's personal claims. The man tries to argue, but every move he makes just digs him deeper. You can almost feel the tension in the room. The judge is calm, but his words are sharp, and the courtroom feels electric. Then comes the warning no one can ignore. Because of a scheduling conflict, the trial gets reset for July 15th, but the judge makes it crystal clear, if this man, if he is really Matthew Aldrich, doesn't show up on the next date, his bond will be revoked, and he will go straight to jail. No second chances. This case perfectly shows why trying to pull stunts like this almost always backfires. Wasting the court's time. That's serious business, and it can lead to harsher consequences. So, if you've ever wondered what happens when someone tries to bend the law with fancy words and identity tricks, here it is. This courtroom drama is tense, chaotic, and a masterclass in how the law always wins, no matter how wild the stunts are. Stick around, because this is the kind of legal chaos you can't look away from.
Yes, sir.
I don't have.
You don't have a name? Pardon?
I'm the attorney effect for the respondent mayor.
Well, let me explain to you. Only an attorney at law can stand in court and represent a criminal defendant. And to do so otherwise violates the criminal law statutes of the state of Tennessee and could land someone who attempts to represent themselves as an attorney at law in serious trouble. I understand what you're saying. I understand you're saying an attorney in fact. And what I want you to understand is that if you have a power of attorney, then you need to demonstrate that power of attorney. Do you have a legal document called a power of attorney?
No, I do not this time.
Okay. Then you don't have any authority to act on behalf of Matthew Aldrich in this court. You have no legal authority, nor do you have any authority through a legal document to represent or to act on behalf of Matthew Aldrich.
Why don't the court just let me file this document?
Show it to the bailiff and he'll show it to me. Apparently there's a copy here.
Yeah.
Matthew Neil Aldrich has failed to appear personally in this court for the plea day on his case, which is set for trial tomorrow. And as a result, you have no standing, sir, under what I know what you're trying to do is to try to use the sovereign citizen approach to this situation. And I'm simply telling you that you do not have the right to represent Matthew Neil Aldrich. If you are, in fact, Matthew Neil Aldrich, then you need to say so and stop this nonsense, because what you're attempting to do has no legal effect. You cannot challenge the criminal law or the jurisdiction of this court by simply filing some legal mumbo jumbo having to do with civil litigation. That has civil litigation in it. It is not a criminal case that you have cited. So it has no effect on this court regarding the criminal statutes of this court. This court is empowered under the Constitution of the United States of America and the Constitution of the state of Tennessee, and by the duly elected citizens of Cheatham County to empower and enforce the laws of the state of Tennessee. And that is what I'm going to do regarding Matthew Lynn Aldrich. Mr. Aldridge is set for today to appear in court personally on what we call our last plea day before his trial date tomorrow.
Question. Is that an article 3 trial?
To what?
Will that be an article 3 trial? A trial by jury with jury?
It would be a trial by jury. Certainly, it would be. But I don't know who you are. And I don't think you have any authority if you are not Matthew Lynn Aldridge to appear before this court. And you are wasting valuable time to all of these other citizens who are here today. So when I'm talking, you stop talking. No, you will when I'm finished talking. You are wasting the court's time by doing this. And I'm just simply instructing you that if you are in fact Matthew Lynn Aldridge, then this is your last day to settle your case. The trial date is set for tomorrow, and unfortunately, it will not go forward because of the fact that I have a conflict and I have to be in Stewart County on a civil matter. So we're going to assign a new trial date for Matthew Lynn Aldridge. All right, to Matthew Aldridge and the individual standing before me whose name must not be altered, then we will set a July 15th trial date for Mr. Aldridge. Whatever this document is that you have filed is in fact invalid because it does not cite any valid criminal statute, and therefore I'm denying whatever that might be in the way of a motion. The trial date will be July 15th. The last day for Mr. Aldridge to enter a plea or go to trial will be July the 8th. July the 8th. Now, we're going to give you a card. If you are, in fact, Matthew Aldridge and you're just playing games with the court regarding this nonsense that you filed, then you may get this card and you may go on about your business. If you are not Matthew Aldridge, then I would suggest to you, you relay to Mr. Aldridge that he must appear on July the 8th, or a bond revocation will take place, and his case will be will take place with him in jail, incarcerated on the 15th. That's the judgment of the court. You need to take your piece of paper and go on about your business.
The moment this hearing begins, you can already tell exactly where it's headed. The defendant walks into the courtroom carrying the same confidence seen in countless other sovereign citizen cases. His posture, his expressions, even the way he looks around the room all suggest that he believes he has discovered some hidden legal truth that the rest of the world is too blind to understand. In his mind, this is not a courtroom where laws are enforced. This is a stage, and he believes he is about to expose the system. The judge opens the hearing in the most routine way possible. No accusations, no hostility, no tricks. Just a simple request to state his name for the record. This is where the illusion begins to crack almost immediately. Instead of answering, the defendant hesitates, then calmly announces that he does not have a name. Not that he refuses to say it. Not that he forgot it. He claims he literally does not have one. The courtroom goes quiet. The judge pauses, clearly processing the response, then asks again. The question is simple, direct, and impossible to misunderstand. The defendant responds by launching into a rehearsed speech. He explains that names are legal constructs, corporate identities, artificial entities created by the government. He insists that he is a living man, separate from any name written on paperwork, and therefore not subject to the authority of the court. This is not new. Judges across the country have heard this exact argument thousands of times. The words might be slightly rearranged, but the message is always the same. The defendant believes that by rejecting the concept of a name, he can escape the reach of the law. The judge listens without interrupting. He lets the defendant speak, not because the argument has merit, but because the court record must reflect that the defendant was given every opportunity to comply. When the defendant finishes, he looks satisfied, as if he has just delivered a knockout blow. Instead, the judge responds calmly and firmly, explaining that the court does not operate on personal beliefs or internet theories. He states clearly that jurisdiction does not disappear simply because someone claims it does. If a person is physically present in the courtroom and charged with an offense, the court has authority, regardless of how that person chooses to identify themselves. The defendant immediately pushes back. He claims he does not consent. He repeats that consent is required for jurisdiction. His voice grows louder, more confident, as if volume alone will turn fiction into law. That is when the judge's patience begins to thin. He explains that consent is not a requirement in criminal proceedings. Laws are not contracts. They apply whether a person agrees with them or not. The judge reminds him that courts deal with reality, not semantics. The defendant is present. The charges exist. The case is proceeding. The defendant tries to interrupt again, insisting that the judge is ignoring his rights. The judge shuts him down instantly, reminding him that this is a courtroom and interruptions will not be tolerated. The tone changes noticeably. Not angry, but authoritative. Final. At this point, the defendant's strategy starts to unravel. The sovereign citizen playbook relies heavily on confusion. It assumes that judges will hesitate, debate, or become unsure. But this judge does none of that. He addresses every claim with clarity and precision, leaving no room for misinterpretation. The judge explains that refusing to state a name does not prevent the court from identifying the defendant. He states that the individual standing before him matches the person named in the charging documents, and that is sufficient. Legal identity does not vanish because someone says a few magic words. The defendant shifts tactics. He now claims the court is committing fraud. He accuses the judge of acting without authority. He repeats that he does not recognize the court and demands immediate release. The judge's response is devastatingly simple. He explains that recognition is irrelevant. The court does not require validation from defendants to function. He makes it clear that continued refusal to cooperate will result in consequences, including contempt of court and potential custody. For the first time, the defendant looks uncertain. The confidence that carried him into the courtroom begins to fade. His arguments have all been addressed. His interruptions are no longer tolerated. The judge remains calm, composed, and fully in control. The defendant attempts one final argument, claiming that he is being unlawfully detained because no contract exists between him and the state. The judge corrects him again, stating that criminal law is not contractual in nature. It is statutory. It exists independent of individual agreement. The courtroom atmosphere shifts completely. What started as a defiant performance now looks like a man trapped by his own misconceptions. The judge continues, explaining that sovereign citizen theories have been rejected by every level of court, repeatedly, for decades. He emphasizes that repeating false claims does not transform them into valid legal defenses. The defendant grows quieter. The judge then addresses the underlying issue directly. He explains that the law applies equally to everyone, regardless of what they believe, what they read online, or what terminology they use. He reminds the defendant that refusing to engage meaningfully only harms his own case. The hearing proceeds despite the defendant's resistance. The court recognizes him as the charged individual and moves forward accordingly. The sovereign citizen tactic, once again, fails completely. This moment perfectly captures why these videos continue to go viral. They show the contrast between internet mythology and real-world law. They expose how confident misinformation collapses the moment it faces someone who actually understands the legal system. The defendant entered the courtroom believing he was untouchable. He believed the law had no power over him. By the end of the exchange, reality made its position clear. Courts do not bend to fantasies. Judges do not debate settled law. And refusing to acknowledge reality does not make it disappear. The system does not shout. It does not argue. It simply proceeds. And no matter how many times the strategy is attempted, the outcome is always the same.